everyone. We are full house right now. We're waiting for some water still. So yeah, I can just say welcome. Thank you very much for coming, and I hope there will be a great discussion today about. Discussion is called Overcoming Challenges and Scaling Internationally. And with us we have today Lucano Spalagnoli from Calmstone VC, Emma Kuffel from Prosoma, Renze van Dijk, is that correct? From Wondoosam, is that correct as well? Okay. And Manish Patel from Jiva AI. And my name is Elena Chloba, and I am head of partnerships at Wolf Summit, and I'm happy to host this panel discussion. Silicon is making pictures on stage. That's amazing. We can also make one at the end of the discussion. But yeah, it looks really good when someone's making pictures. I like that. So yeah, we have the water, and I think we're all set out for the start. So maybe we'll start with a quick round of introductions. I'll just ask, maybe starting from Lucanus to say a couple of words about what you do. Since Lucanus is the VC representative here, and all of the others are scale-ups, just say what you invest in the Calmstone. Probably everyone already knows since you presented yourself today. But, just for the public, if someone hasn't heard, and then we'll go with the rounds of introductions of our scale-ups who are with us today.
Hello, I'm Lucanus. I founded Calmstone Ventures after I've been a GP fund manager in Speedinvest. I've invested in digital health for quite a long time and then wanted to build my own fund. We are a fund that is industry focused, so we only invest in health companies, and we only invest in the earliest stages, meaning the first and second financing round. I have been in touch, or I have been involved in financing of later stage rounds before that, but I think that's where I'm best at, that is more fun for me, and whenever you do something that you like, you're probably better.
Emma, what about you? Yeah, we just basically heard what you're doing, but just a quick one.
You just have to suffer through my presentation, so I'm sure I don't have to repeat myself.
For the recording, if someone...
But yes, I'm a co-founder of Prosoma. It's a digital therapeutics company in oncology, and we are present in Poland, Germany, and the US, so we're scaling up now too. And welcome to the graveyard shift. Well done, guys, for your perseverance and being here.
Renze.
Hi, Renze van Dijk, CEO and co-founder of Woonduurzaam. A couple of years ago, I wanted to make my own home sustainable, free it of the use of fossil fuels. And having a long history in renewable energy, I was very motivated for that and went out to the market and asked companies to provide me with the best solution. And whereas probably most of you have the experience that in such a case you can buy stuff anywhere, everybody wants to sell you something. What I wanted to know is what is the best combination of measures for my home and the use that I make of it with my family. An answer to that I really couldn't get, and after a lot of frustration I decided that this was a hole in the market, and that the market could use an organization that would be able to help you as a homeowner with that. That is what we set out to build then, and it's called Woonduurzaam. We're operating in the Netherlands only, have grown very fast over the past years, and are looking to scale internationally. Yes, probably under a different name.
So Manish, what about you?
Hi everyone. So my name is Manish. I'm CEO, co-founder of Jiva. If you look really closely at my forehead, you'll see an imprint of a keyboard, and that's me banging my head against a keyboard for the last 20 years, trying to do AI and machine learning and data science. It's really effing hard, right? And that's the reason we started Jiva. Jiva makes AI easy as composing an email. So whether it's a automation or a medical diagnostic, you can create that level of complexity in AI with our product. We started our journey 3 or 4 years ago, early 2019. We were probably one of the few companies that the pandemic actually was quite friendly to, because we were in the health tech and med tech space, and so we grew very quickly at that time. And yeah, here we are.
Amazing, thank you. So let's just straight go into the question about about the name of the panel discussion. What did block you in scaling internationally? I know this is a question for Scale Up. So I know that Renze will be looking into that, but I'm also want to get the perspective of him, of you, of what your experience is, of like what your research is about how to scale internationally, and from Emma and Manish about what mistakes did they make already, and from Lucanus about how the VC can help maybe avoid that mistakes or something else, whatever your thoughts are. So maybe Berenze, we'll start with you. What did you block? What did block you, but what will you block you probably?
Oh, there has been blocking so far. We needed to digitalize our proposition first. So now we're almost done with really bringing our solution into a one-stop shop platform for zero energy living. That makes it more scalable. That's one. And the limited resources that we've had at our disposition so far is when you have a two-sided proposition like ours, we need to attract customers, B2C, and also to attract installers, B2B. So have food on the ground, expand country by country, is really makes that we need to put a lot of effort and a lot of money into every expansion, and then combining that with regulations that are different in every country, subsidies that are different in every country, consumers and buildings that are differently for every country, really makes it to our guts a pretty big step that we're still putting together the puzzle for, finding the funding and taking the step only when we feel we are ready. And on the other end, you're never ready, so we might be too late in the meantime, and that's the difficulty. That's a situation that we are trying to get out of.
Amazing. Well, Manish, what about you?
I like that you're never ready. It's like being a parent, because you're never really ready to be a parent either, right? You can read as many books about it as you like, and you're never ready. Yeah, this is it. It's I mean, in terms of blockers, I mean, there's so many. Investment was a major one for us, getting the right investment money in. We went to Calmstorm. You guys didn't actually invest in us. I'll have a word with you about that later. Getting investment and getting the right investors is really, really important, obviously. Getting the right people around the table with you at the early stages is also really important. So I'll give you a quick example. We've got one guy on our board who we were lucky enough to get for free. He didn't want any money. We gave him a really small percentage of equity, but the guy was super, super, super well connected. And just with a few simple introductions, he was able to bring real business to the company. And that was a major unblocker for us. That, you know, how do you approach the market? How do you grow? Well, actually, it's all about network. It's all about knowing the right people, and that was the major thing that unblocked us. But yeah, you can name literally everything. Everything is a blocker for a startup.
Well, yeah, of course, Emma, your startup is in the medtech, and you have just talked about what your the trials and R&D. Maybe just share a bit more about that.
Sure thing. I think that, first of all, you know, when you're scaling internationally, you have to assume that you know nothing when entering a new market and try to get as many people on the ground and just to talk to them, essentially. But in terms of research, just if you make a timeline for a research project, then multiply it by 3, and that would probably be an accurate estimate at how long it all takes to agree with a hospital, to recruit patients, and to actually get there. Ours is quite an interesting project because the whole legislation and the whole movement around digital healthcare is changing and has changed really quite a lot in the past couple of years. So we constantly have to adapt to new rules coming out, or, you know, pitching and learning about cultural differences and so on. So it's been quite great to get to know loads of people around the world, but I would say that, you know, every timeline probably is going to be extended by at least 30%. And if you're thinking about it, just make sure that you have strategies, especially if you're following a legislational pathway. just have strategies of, okay, this is probably going to take 2 years for us to get an FDA approval. What are we going to do in the meantime? So trying to come up with creative ways of trying to find your business whilst you're working on your trials.
Okay, so now the VC perspective. So I know, yeah, as you mentioned, Lucanus, Comstorm is medtech mostly focused. You also mentioned that, you know, about the different stages and of the scale up. So maybe you can share how you help maybe with scaling internationally to your startups and scale ups.
It's a tricky question, but let me start maybe. What is my job as a venture capitalist? My job is that we actually have the conversation. It's not my job to do every investment in every startup that I have a conversation with, but I need to see it. So if I have an anti-portfolio company like this one that is successful despite me turning it down, that's not a problem for me as a fund. And I think that should also be the rationale of founders. They talk to investors knowing that not all of these investors can say yes. They need to find the right one. And that's the first step to my answer. The right investor can give you the right help and support to do your internationalization that is right for you. It's not for every startup the same. And you're saying that I'm investing in medtech. Actually, I'm not. I'm not investing in medtech because for us, health has 3 different verticals, and we're investing only in digital health. We think medtech is something else, and we also think life science and bioscience is something else. But it's not clear, and so that's why it's a really tough thing to find out how does the investor really see the world, where is his or her strengths and weaknesses, and how does that fit to myself. So if I'm a B2C app and I'm global, available from day one, like, I don't know, a diabetes management app, the question about internationalization is quite different than I'm a regulated software for helping nurses to detect thrombosis, and I need to go from one country to the next, or from FDA approval to European approval. So there is no right or wrong, I think, and there is no one recipe that you can have. The tricky part is, what is the recipe for you as a startup, and who is the one who helps you cooking? The most VCs totally overestimate the ability to help. If you look, there's a few researchers out there where founders, in retrospect, said that VCs didn't help a lot. But then if you ask them, who did the introduction to the follow-on investor, most of the time it was the VC. So maybe it's not a lot of support overall, but it's very crucial support in that one conversation that led to something else.
And money, of course. Okay, it's interesting. So we also, just before that, we talked about different things, like how to basically start up, scale in the market. It's different from your home market. I think, Renze, you talked about that just now. And you talked about the difference between the digital startups, and your startup is not fully digital. Maybe you can share something like, the blockers, and I know that it's different for everyone, but what is your experience right now? What are you researching about, and what are the markets that you want to go, for example, for first?
Oh, it's definitely different for every scale-up. What we need, first of all, is to be able to fulfill our proposition on 2 sides. Both to the customer, who is the homeowner, where we need to know the regulations for homes, we need to know preferences in the market, we need to know technologies that are widely used, that can all be different per country, because we operate in a market that is still very regionally orientated, with only the largest technology manufacturers that operate in a number of countries throughout the world. it's in some markets very political also, so we need to have the right connections. There are countries where we just won't get a foot on the ground if we're not favored by local and regional political movements and governments. So it's really the market that we go to. The markets that we go to, it's really a decision that takes a lot of research. Otherwise, we'll just fail. I had a recent conversation with a very successful company in the Netherlands, also kind of an installation-based company that exported its business model to Germany, country next door, with the idea that they would be widely successful with their same business model, and it failed totally. They withdrew after 3 or 4 years. So this can happen. What we would look for, what we are looking for in a country that we want to go to is, first of all, are our current manufacturing partners that we work with in the Netherlands, are they also there? And are they willing to help us, to connect us to the players that we need there? The installer networks, local governments, are they willing to execute marketing campaigns with us in the same manner that we do with them together in the Netherlands? What is the government push towards more sustainable living, and is it genuine, or will it change next year because some politician changed place? This is kind of deep research, and it led us for now to the conclusion that potential interesting markets for us, again depending on the network, could be this market, UK, where there seems to be a strong push towards more sustainable housing. Could be Austria and Germany, even though I've seen our competitor fail in Germany, I think we could potentially do it. And if we can tap into the right networks, a southern European country like Italy could also be of interest. And what I've just been advised this morning in the workshop given by Zoltan Vardy is that he said, well, you know, if you start expanding and you're country by country, you need a country by country expansion, pick 3. And just starting 3 with minimum efforts, no foot on the ground yet, and see where networks start to move and where traction starts to arise, and just after that, choose and put your foot on the ground in that country. That's an interesting approach that we might follow that.
Oh, that's really interesting and hands-on. So Manish, I want to ask you about your first expansion. What was it like, and maybe you can say a few mistakes that you made or maybe didn't make, and had someone advise you there.
Yeah, so first was US because it's nice and easy and big. I say easy, actually it wasn't easy at all. Even though it's English speaking and similar-ish culture, it's actually a completely different place to sell to. You find that there are different regulatory aspects, or not regulatory, different legal aspects to selling SaaS software in one state to another. So selling into Florida is actually completely different from selling to California, which is an absolute pain in the arse because you're a tiny company and you're trying to make things work, and it's difficult. But the thing that unlocked it for us was getting our chief revenue officer hired in the US, who had already done it. He'd worked in all 50, however many states there are. He knew what the nuances were. He was able to navigate that really, really quickly for us. And as soon as we had boots on the ground there, it worked really, really well. But now we're doing the same in India. And as you can probably guess, I'm originally Indian. I thought that would be easy as well. It's not. It's even harder. And so it's not about even hiring someone in India for in that location. It's actually partnering with someone who's already established there, because there's a massive trust issue. So if you have a partner that is able to effectively white label you or sell you, and they're a trusted partner of other big organizations like Accenture India, for example, then that works really, really well. So you have to learn these nuances for every country. Unfortunately, and it'll be different for whatever your industry sector is. There's no way around doing the hard research that you've done. There's nothing around it. You just have to do it, and you'll discover the right way.
Okay, interesting. So Emma, I know that you have a lot of issues, and I think what was your first extension?
Just me or in my startup?
No, sorry, I know you're a startup. Don't take it personally. I don't. I only talk about the startups here. I'm on stage. I'm professional. So, what was your first expansion of Prosoma? Where did you expand first?
So the first one was actually in Germany, but again, we knew someone on the ground. We knew someone that had experience in working with hospitals, so it was made easier by that. So I would say that definitely you have to put someone on the ground, and especially in the US, because it is so hard with the time difference and the nuances of the culture, and it is really different working culture and business culture in the US as well.
Was the US which was this market, second, third, that you expanded to? The US.
Sorry?
The US, which was this market?
Oh, it was so Poland first, then we expanded to Germany, and then the US after that. We were having a bit of a love affair of trying to get established in the UK because I've worked for the NHS in the past. However, we had to focus on scaling up in Germany and the US for the time being. So we'll see what the future holds.
So the UK is out of question now?
It's definitely not out of the question. We just don't have the manpower in the current financing rounds to be able to cover it. And to be honest, we've seen within some European VCs, that the focus has shifted for them as well after Brexit, which is quite interesting. So the UK actually isn't as much of a tasty sort of selling point as it used to be. But I genuinely hope that we can help patients here as well, because we are not, it's a bit of a passion project as well, where we're trying to do something positive in mental health.
Okay, my next question is about the moment when a company decides to go international. So I want to ask Lucanus about the VC perspective. I know that we'd already discussed that for everyone is different, but what would you maybe advise to the startup that says we want to go international? When should they do it, if they're early stage or late stage? Do you have any thoughts or advice on that?
We ask them we always ask them 3 questions. Do you really want it? Are you allowed to do it? And will you love it? Do you really want to do it is the question. Do you go abroad or do you go international because your investor thinks that's a good idea, or because your co-founder thinks it's a good idea, or why would you want to do it in the first place? And who would go there? Would you split? And all these problems that come with that decision. And most actually fail at that question already. So when they say, yes, we want it, and we have all these reasons why we want it, are you allowed to do it? And the question is, do you need approval, or you don't need approval? We don't know, let's break it, we don't care. This is an all new set of discussions, nice board meetings, I can tell you. And then if then is decided, yes, we are allowed to do it, or we at least say we are allowed to do it, are we really loving it? And I think founders who have a background from somewhere else, maybe migration background, or somehow have experienced themselves to go somewhere else, have such a huge advantage in going in a different country and a different setup, because they know how it is to adapt from scratch. Like the middle-aged me, Lucanus, has a very hard time to go abroad. And so their love for the customers or the love for the users in a different country doesn't come by itself. And that's probably then the hardest question for success. So do I want it? Am I allowed to do it? And do I really love it?
That's really insightful, some insightful talk. So yeah, Emma, at which stage did you decide that you need to go international? What was the point where you thought?
Immediately. When we first started the company, we already knew that we were going to go for Germany, and soon after that, we've decided to go for the US as well. Because of the fact that digital healthcare isn't really yet established in Poland, we knew that we would be working with the government to try to influence the change, but realistically it's not going to happen and be reimbursable for years. So we know that we won't be able to get an application on a prescription in Poland probably in the next couple of years. But I would also like to say that in terms of scaling, we've mentioned a lot of obstacles, and I think obviously you can't scale without getting an investment as well. So this is a massive area for us. But to anyone that's a startup founder or a startup owner in this room, I'd like to say that prepare for rejection, but also welcome rejection, basically. Every single time you can learn something new when you meet with investors, and it becomes different when you get to Series A or Series B funding. It's a two-way job interview when you talk with an investor, and you're just much more specific about who you want to work with. That you have to be in bed with these people for the next 5, 10 years whilst you're growing. So it's really important to make your choices wisely, but also if someone completely doesn't get your idea, doesn't see the potential and rejects you, that's great, basically, because then you can say, okay, cool, we know now that we can't be working with you and that you will not invest in us, so give us some feedback or recommend someone else, hopefully. And but yeah, perseverance is key, so I wish everyone who's working in a startup well, basically. Keeping my fingers crossed for you guys.
Oh, so we touched on the topic of choosing an investor, so maybe we can network about that later. Renze, yeah, my question is the same. What's the moment when you decided to go international, or you also thought about from the start?
No, I chose a Dutch name for our startup, and that was for a reason. It means live sustainably, which works very well in the Dutch market, but very poorly outside of that. We even only have a Dutch website so far, working on an international one right now. Anyway, I'm an impact-oriented guy. Our startup, or scale-up nowadays, is an impact-oriented scale-up. And at one point we saw clearer and clearer that the energy transition in the built environment is not only going too slow in the Netherlands, but it's going slow everywhere, too slow. And we saw that a solution like ours is actually not available anywhere in other countries. We haven't found any so far. And that was the point where we found, well, if we want to have impact, we can have a lot of impact in the Netherlands, but the Netherlands is a country that's only this small. And in Europe alone, there's 230 million buildings that need to be made sustainable. And we have the solution. So why should we limit ourselves to the Netherlands? If we want to make impact, let's make maximum impact. Let's go outside, let's go abroad as well. That is when we decided that we wanted to go international. It's really the impact that we want to make.
So you answered all 3 questions that Lucanus mentioned. You said
I think so.
Yeah, and you said that we want to live well with that, and you love to expand, basically. Okay, so Manish, that's the question for you. Did you think about the expansion from the start, or? Yeah,
so we're a bit different from the types of companies that need to be on site to do something. We're a SaaS company, so to be able to penetrate remotely abroad is somewhat easier in terms of delivery, but obviously you also have the regulatory and the legal blockers to think about as well. So we were thinking about internationalization right from the start, and I would say we probably thought about it way too early. We were thinking about those things from day one when we hadn't even built a product yet, and actually that distracted us from having a focus. Our focus should have been from day one, build your product, build it well, make it work, do people love it? We should have been answering those questions right to begin with, and we probably could have got there much faster had we done that, had we done it the other way around. Actually, I think we got lucky that we were able to internationalize, we were able to get into the US, looking at other countries as well, in the EU. We got lucky that we had the right people around us, because we didn't do that on purpose. We didn't actually say one day let's just internationalize. We just, who doesn't want? Do you want to make any money? Yes. Okay. Let's internationalize. So that was the driver, right? So, but I think you do have to think about it at the right time. Is your product actually ready? Is your team actually ready? Have you actually written on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard, these are the steps I need to take to get into this country, and these are the costs that are involved to get into that country. Are we ready and prepared to do that? Have you actually done that exercise? And if you haven't done that exercise, then do it, because otherwise you do it like us, and then you lose all your hair, and it's not a pretty experience.
If I had a startup, I would just from day one thought about being famous and like the best one, and being in the US or like anywhere else. But thank God I don't have it. Maybe
Not
yes.
yet.
Yeah, who knows what happens in the future? But I also wrote to myself a small note, blood, sweat, and tears part. So I just wanted to ask you about like maybe one fact, because we are almost done with the discussion. Maybe one part that was like really hard for you in the scaling internationally. And yeah, maybe you can share something interesting that maybe not invisible for everyone else. So Manish, I see you ready. You thought about that already?
Yeah, it's probably not exactly what you're after, but scaling, and I just said it can be an expensive process, right? And if you haven't done all your homework, what you'll do is you'll end up finding that you're in a place where your company's running out of money, you're burning far too much cash, and as a founder and as a CEO, there is a certain level of stress and burden you will feel that no one else in the company will feel. At the time, actually, we had one of my data scientists. She was pregnant. She had a baby early, so she had to go. And I woke up every morning thinking, God, she's going to come back, and there's not going to be a company to come back to. That level of stress is really difficult to deal with. So have the right people around you to give you that support. Don't shoot yourself in the head. It'll be fine. You'll get through it. Yeah, stress management is an important tool.
Lindsay, what's your take? What's your one thing?
100% recognizable. I was just thinking, it's all the same everywhere. But for internationalization, there needs to be a certain level of peace and quiet, probably, in the head of the founders and the CEO. A certain level of confidence in that you'll still be there next year. That might be what you mean. And having navigated through COVID-19, where we didn't get any intake for months, order intake, through the financial crisis beginning of last year, when the Ukraine situation started, we've gone through a couple of years with a number of periods where that stress was at too high a level for me and for us to even consider internationalization as a short-term option. True.
Okay, Emma?
I think that for me it's the team, definitely. If you have a good idea and you have your house in order, everything will go flying. But it's been incredibly challenging in the past few years to build a team of 30 people that all work remotely as well. So I think that we've managed quite well to now really have a strong team and have that team spirit, despite the fact that we're on Zoom all the time. And when you suggest meetings at 5 p.m. on Friday, sometimes no one wants to come. But we have away days every 3 months to make sure to keep up that team spirit and to try to make sure that everyone believes in our mission and wants to help us.
Lucanus, what's your perspective?
I always use the same analogy. If you decide to go across the Atlantic with a small sailing boat, no one of us, no one in the room, would not first, before they leave port, ask someone who just returned from the trip. They wouldn't just sail out there without any preparation, because it's extremely dangerous and you probably don't get back alive. And as a startup, you're a boat as well, and you should not drown. So founders who are very well prepared, who are thoughtful, who talk to other founders who did that before, are much more likely to succeed than those who just, leave port.
Okay, thank you so much. I think there were a lot of insights also for me. I'm not a startup founder, but if I ever was one, I would definitely watch this talk once again and just, write down a list of remarks. So thank you very much to all our panelists. Really interesting talk. And I think I'm giving the mic to the next, someone next in our panel, in our agenda. I'm sorry. Once again, thank you so much. Thank you very much for our audience who listened and probably made remarks. I hope so. We'll do a pop quiz later. It's a joke. Thank you.